Now, the last primary gathering that we have recognized is absolutely essential for Christian growth is what we generically have come to call triads. Now, some people in the past have called them, accountability groups, or maybe called them other things, life transformation groups, but we call them triads. And truly, we have recognized that this is a time for accelerated Christian growth in major ways. Because we've recognized on Sundays, we tend to appear more like kind of spectators, where we come, we sit there, we observe the preacher, the teacher, and we kind of sit and receive, which is fine. It's at times we just need the truth preached and kind of coached ourselves individually. Life groups become this time when we actually start to experience, missional communities and these multiplication effects where we're mainly just praying and caring and sharing for each other. But the question is how do we stay accountable to being in the Word on our own and being in prayer on a regular basis, not just for other believers, but, we regularly talk about evangelism and the lost, but they need prayed for, and it's kind of naive to expect us to just have zeal for the lost without prayer, and so we need regular prayer in all these areas. Not only are we wanting to do the good things, like being in the Word, being in prayer, but we're prone to do the exact opposite. We're prone to wander, we're prone to sin, we're prone to develop bad patterns, to have all sorts of behaviors that bring guilt and shame on us, and so then the very things that we want to do, we're not doing, and the very things that we don't want to do, we are doing. Sound familiar? Because we have these intimate relationships where we're able to share these struggles and pay attention to detail according to where we are in our relationship with God. And some people are further ahead, some people are just starting, and each person needs intimate care and precision on the details of their life, of where they are. And so Triads becomes a perfect place to being accountable to reading the Bible, being in the Word, accountable to praying for the lost, accountable to confessing sin and our struggles. And we recognize these groups should be no less than 3. 2 people tends to kind of have a teacher-peer relationship, and that's not the greatest for accelerated growth, but when there's suddenly 3, then there's mutual pouring in and being poured into. And more than 5 people in a group becomes a small group, becomes a life group. And there's moments that can be shared there, but if it's too big, then people can kind of hide and kind of disappear. And we recognize that for accountability, each person needs to have the opportunity to kind of to bring their soul and to be inspected by everybody else, and ask hard questions, ask uncomfortable questions. And we really do need to give each other permission to ask each other really difficult things, and as we fail, give each other permission to smack each other around a little bit, to just throw it aside as if it doesn't really matter, because it does matter. Sin draws us away from God, and the Bible and prayer draws us to God, and seeking the lost draws us to God. And we've recognized, man, these triads is accelerated Christian growth, because it is where young men and young women and groups of 3, 4, and 5 can come together, and they're way more mobile. I mean, they can meet in the mornings, before school, before work. They can meet, really late at night. They can meet Saturdays, Sundays, and one week may look different than the next, and it's okay, because there's so few people that they can adjust their schedules, and it is much more conducive to the changing environments, like college kids who are always kind of having different schedules, and it's conducive to teenagers who kind of have their whole schedule written every day, and we don't want to add something extra. But at the same time, it demands a commitment. And do we want to be drawn very close to the heart of God? Do we want to be held accountable to things? And if we do, then it requires a little bit extra commitment, which may require a little bit less sleep some morning and meeting. But what we have discovered is we all have early mornings, and if we just maybe meet an hour earlier than what we're used to, we can fit it into anybody's schedule, and it's benefiting so many people. And it really is the one area where we have recognized too, where on-the-job training for our leaders can happen just simply through Life on Life. And somebody who goes through a triad for a year are in a great place to then lead their own life group the following year, just because as they seek God, God grows them, and they're more prepared to facilitate and lead a life group. And so it's a lot of on-the-job training. And once again, we're not looking for the qualifications to be a long list of seminary classes or degrees, but rather we want something that can be reproducible and effectively grow. Simple people like myself to the brilliant people, like the scholars, and it should be conducive for each one of those environments. And so that's what we've discovered Triads end up being perfect for. And we're discovering that as kids confess among 3 people that they wouldn't in front of a bigger group, over time they're released from that bondage, and then they're willing to share in bigger groups. But it's the only time that we give them an opportunity to talk about their broken windows of their soul, then that we're prone to never end up confessing, because it's just too difficult of an environment in front of everybody. But if we give kids set aside environments where they can talk specifically about those things, then they're set free. And we recognize, man, what is in the darkness, if it stays there, then the enemy has complete control over it. But if we bring what's in the darkness into the light, then Jesus brings freedom through that. And it is for freedom that Christ set us free, right? And God wants us to be free of those things. He's paid the price in order to accomplish that. It is our responsibility to give him control of those things. And we recognize that so much of this happens through Triads.